The NBA made its triumphant return to NBC this season, and who did Universal bring in to really start it off with a bang? Who did they bring in to engage all audiences? They brought in the GOAT, also known as Michael Jordan. They teased Michael Jordan appearing up and down the bill to get people tuned in, to get people watching. Now, February 1st, they're rolling something else out. Basketball Night in America. Well, Michael Jordan, he already fulfilled his duties. He already took care of his commitments. He already reached all requirements on the contract. So who do they need to go get? Well, the next best thing, I suppose. Caitlin Clark.
ESPN fans, listen up. Because this move just shifted the balance of power in women's basketball. Caitlin Clark has joined NBC's NBA studio panel. Not as a random guest. Not as a quick cameo. This is a real on-air role, sitting next to NBA legends in prime time. During the exact window when the WNBA Players Union is getting ready for a CBA fight. That could seriously impact the 2026 season.
You know, they've created some buzz with Caitlin Clark, who was announced as a special contributor for the broadcast. Also, she will be joining the crew there. You see Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. And CeCe will be making her TV analyst debut.
And stay with me, because at the end I'm going to show you the one sentence in NBC's announcement that tells you exactly how they plan to market Caitlin going forward and why that single line quietly adds pressure to every negotiation happening inside the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark has landed herself a new, very high-profile position, and I've been wondering when this was going to happen. I knew at some point, somewhere, with some miscellaneous media outlet, Caitlin Clark would get a gig, and now we know where that gig's going to be, when that gig's going to be, and who that gig's going to be for.
Here's the bigger picture. The WNBA is approaching the end of its current collective bargaining agreement, and players have already made it clear they're willing to use real leverage. If the next deal doesn't meet their expectations, that means higher salaries, better travel, improved working conditions, and a larger share of the revenue the league is now bringing in. But here's the issue with a holdout. It only works if everyone feels the pressure at the same time. And Caitlin just made a move that lowers her pressure. Her NBC role runs through the spring of 2026, so if the WNBA season starts on schedule, she benefits. If the season is delayed or negotiations drag out, she still benefits. That's why people are reacting. Not in a how dare she way, but because it highlights something that's been building for a while. Some players are fully tied to the WNBA calendar. Caitlin is building a career that can operate beyond it. Now let's talk about what NBC actually did, because the details matter. NBC is launching Basketball Night in America. They're presenting it like a major event, similar to how they build big Sunday football broadcasts. And they're not tucking Caitlin away in a small segment. Her debut is set for February 1st before Lakers vs. Knicks at Madison Square Garden. That's one of the biggest stages possible. Then she's back March 9th for Thunder vs. Knicks, again, primetime matchups, major markets, and broadcasts designed to travel across social media.
That Caitlin Clark will join NBC Sports to serve as a special contributor for its new Basketball Night in America program. Caitlin Clark will make her debut as a TV analyst on February 1st, preceding the Lakers versus Knicks game at Madison Square Garden, per a release from NBC. Wow. So this would be akin to, they have Sunday Night Football, and it starts with a pregame show called Football Night in America.
Not a test run. That's NBC saying we're putting her in front of the entire basketball audience. Look at the desk they've built around her: Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Reggie Miller. That's a credibility lineup. That's NBC making it clear that Caitlin belongs in the same conversation as some of the most recognizable voices in the game. So this isn't just Caitlin picking up another job. This is NBC planting a flag in the future of basketball coverage.
Here we are. It will be Caitlin Clark's first time in an analyst-type role on TV. That's per Chloe Peterson. She will return to the broadcast table on March 9 for a game between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Knicks. Caitlin Clark joins Michael Jordan as a splashy acquisition for NBC and NBA coverage.
Now here's where WNBA players might feel the squeeze. When the union talks about leverage, the main weapon is time. If the season is interrupted, players lose paychecks. They lose rhythm. They lose visibility. They lose momentum. Caitlin's move changes that math. She can stay visible inside the biggest basketball ecosystem in the country, even if the WNBA schedule gets complicated. So while some players look at the next CBA and see risk, Caitlin looks at that same stretch of time and sees opportunity. And let me be clear, this isn't about saying Caitlin is trying to undercut the union. It's about incentives. Her income and her spotlight are no longer fully dependent on the WNBA calendar. That difference matters in a labor fight. Owners pay attention to who can wait the longest. Networks pay attention to who keeps audiences engaged. Sponsors pay attention to who guarantees visibility. Without saying anything publicly, Caitlin's NBC role becomes leverage. Now add the timing. Her 2025 season ended early because of injury in July. If the WNBA season begins in May, that's a long gap. Most players would use that time to train, rehab, and hope the league situation works itself out. Caitlin is filling that gap with media work, national team commitments, and brand deals. So when people say WNBA players are reacting strongly, what they're really describing is concern about falling behind. In a star-driven league, visibility is currency. And Caitlin just secured a currency stream that keeps flowing even if the WNBA pauses. Now here's where it gets sharper. NBC didn't describe her as a women's basketball star. They called her one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Not women's basketball, just basketball. That's the line. And if you understand how networks operate, you know that wording matters. That's not just praise, that's positioning. NBC isn't placing her in a separate lane. They're moving her into the broader basketball conversation alongside NBA storylines, NBA debates, and NBA audiences that are significantly larger than the WNBA's current reach. That creates two reactions at once. Fans look at it and say, finally, this makes sense. Players might look at it and think, if the spotlight can shift that quickly for one person, what does that mean for everyone else? The union's message is about collective value, but the marketplace rewards individual pull, and Caitlin has undeniable pull. When CBA talks heat up, owners will likely make a quiet point. The league is growing, but the growth isn't evenly distributed. They'll reference ratings spikes, ticket sales, sponsorship interest, and social engagement centered around a handful of names. Caitlin will be at the center of that narrative, whether she intends to be or not. That's why this move isn't just interesting, it's strategic. It gives Caitlin options. It gives NBC a bridge between NBA and WNBA coverage. And it forces a tough question the league has been circling for years. Is the WNBA building an equal system? Or is it evolving into a star-driven economy? If it's a star economy, players will push even harder for revenue share tied to impact. If it's an equal system, the league has to protect the collective even when one person clearly drives a huge share of attention. That tension creates friction. Here's the real takeaway. If you're trying to gauge whether the 2026 season could be at risk, watch three things. First, listen to the union's language. If it shifts from general frustration to specific timelines, concrete demands, and real vote discussions, that's when things get serious. Second, watch for actual owner concessions. Not public statements, real changes, travel upgrades, roster expansion, movement on revenue share. If you don't see tangible progress, the temperature rises. Third, watch for hedge behavior. When major stars lock in outside platforms during a risky window, that signals preparation for disruption. And when broadcasters build programming that can hold fan attention, even if the WNBA calendar becomes uncertain, that's them pricing in risk. So Caitlin joining NBC isn't just another headline. It's a signal that the league's biggest star is building a career that doesn't depend entirely on the league's stability. And that reality forces a decision. Does the WNBA double down on protecting the collective? Or does it lean into riding its stars? Because long-term, doing both gets complicated. So here's the question, is Caitlin's NBC move smart protection during a 10 CBA year? Or is it the first domino revealing how divided the money and leverage really are? If you're still here, drop NBC panel in the comments. NBC panel in the comments.